teammates. Welcome back to the Maiden Team podcast. We will celebrate the passion for Iron Maiden and heavy metal. Let's start with introducing what this podcast is all about. The Maiden Team podcast was born from the Maiden Team, which initially started as the guitar team, a collaborative project where we played the numerous Iron Maiden covers with different guests. One of the highlights was our performance of The Trooper with 11 guitarists, featuring Nico Falso from Licks of the Beast and today's guest Ron Sandhu from Altered Minds. We also had the privilege of playing with Courtney Cox from Iron Maiden, the world's most famous all-female Iron Maiden tribute band. As more musicians and vocalists joined the project, the guitar team evolved into the Maiden Team. And from the Maiden Team, we launched this podcast to connect with musicians, talk about our experiences, and share our passion for Iron Maiden and metal music. So, as in collaboration, our guest today is someone I had the pleasure of working with recently. Ladies and gentlemen, from New York,
And
Ron
Connecticut.
Sandhu. Hi,
And
Ron.
Connecticut. East Coast, New England, New York. Originally New York.
Now you are in Connecticut. Okay, but you are originally from New York, right?
Yes, Long Island, New York. Can't you tell from my
Okay,
accent?
yeah. So we are gonna start with the interview. So first question, Ron, can you take us back to the beginning? How did Altered Minds start, and how was the band evolved over the years?
Yeah. So we probably started, it was me and the original singer, Scott Estrada, probably right when we got out of high school. I think in high school I was playing with a couple of different bands. I just started playing guitar when I was 17, so like 11th grade. I really wasn't a good guitar player at all. I probably still aren't, but I was playing with different guitar players, so I can get my chops up. And then about years after, like we're probably a year or two after high school, I had enough confidence to be, writing my own stuff and being the one guitar player in the band. So the original singer Scott Estrada is a childhood friend, going back to like, when we were like 10, 12 years old, maybe even, around then. We started writing stuff and went through different incarnations of the band. We had different guys. We used different drummers, different bass players. I worked at a big guitar store on Long Island, so I knew a lot of musicians. So we'd gone through probably five or six different guitar players. Because everything I wrote all the stuff back then. I always write for two guitars because of the huge influence of Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, everything with twin guitars. I always thought it'd be so much cooler to have a two guitar player band. So everything I wrote was for two guitar players. So I went through like a bunch of different guys. It was hard to really find a player that would be into the same type of metal that I was into, I guess you could say. And eventually, what happened was when I was working in the guitar store, I ran into this kid. I call him kid now, he was kid back then, who was taking lessons at the store. His name was Chris Jacino. And the thing that caught my eye was when he came into the store
The
one day for
secondary
lessons.
guitarist, right?
Yeah, the second guitar player, Chris Jacino, came into the store where we had like we did lessons. It was a big guitar store. He had an Iron Maiden sticker on his guitar case, so that's what started us talking. And it turns out we both loved Iron Maiden. And Chris was also in a situation where he was always in a one-player band. I believe the name of his band was Psycho Circus back then. Uh, with one of the Altered Minds bass players, Alex Wise, was with him. So this was like an first time both of us. I was in two guitar player bands before where I was just like the rhythm player because the other guitar players were so much better that I just was happy, being in a band. But this was the first time we started doing it. And when we got together, I had written about four or five songs already. And the way I wrote was me and Scott used to write everything. I would just write some music, what I thought sounded cool, and then Scott would just start singing over it. He was great with writing melodies, and that's how that evolved. And then when Chris got in the band, we started taking stuff that I had written and made it a two-player thing. Like I said, I always wrote for two players, but Chris jumping on board, and we both had that love for Maiden, for twin guitars, for harmonies. we started doing everything together in that respect. So that's how that started. And then we had, our original band was me and Chris Chacino on guitars. Scott Estrada was the singer. Um, Bass player was Dave Almodovar, and the drummer was Anthony Falco. I'd known Dave, same thing, through the guitar store. I got to meet all these musicians from working in this guitar store that was one of the biggest guitar stores on Long Island, still is, where, every big player came through this store. So you got to network a lot back then. This is before social media and all that stuff. So it was kind of cool. So Dave
We are
brought,
talking about which year?
this is probably 1990. Yeah, probably 1990. That's when I first started writing really songs for Altered Minds. Because before then, I was in a couple of bands where, like I said, I was just a second guitar player. That was just, I was learning how to play lead. I was just playing along with the lead player. But finally, thought I had enough in me where I could write my own stuff and start writing my own leads. I listen back to it now, wasn't very good, but you know what? That's how you start, right? But so then so Dave brought over Anthony Falco, who was the first drummer, who's friends with Dave. So it's the same thing. It's friends of friends. Everybody knew each other. And then we had the basis of the band right there. We started writing tunes for a demo and stuff. And as things happen, people change in the outfit and so forth. So Dave left the band, and Chris's friend Alex Wise, who was the bass player in his previous band, was another Maiden aficionado. At that time, Maiden this was during what? You got to figure the Power Slave era, and Maiden was at the top of there, where everybody wanted to write stuff like Maiden. So there was a lot of Maiden fans around, especially musician wise. So we got Alex to join the band. So now that was the basic solid section of the band. We had me and Chris on guitars, Scott on vocals, Alex Wise on bass, and Anthony on drums. And yeah, so we put out a demo. We had originally recorded 7 songs with a producer on Long Island named Paul Umbach, who's a really good friend. But I think, who knows, maybe financially, I don't even remember what happened, but we ended up only using 4 of the songs. I have the masters for everything, which is kind of cool to listen back. But we recorded 4 songs for the demo, put the
I
demo out,
remember
and
that
started.
tape. That I remember that music tape you posted on Instagram.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, I still have the master reel to reels from it. Going back, Ampex 456 16 track reels. So I still have those. But yeah, so I want to show you something. This was before Altered Minds.
Okay.
Uh, I got something here. Hold on.
Okay.
So you can say this was the original beginnings of Altered Minds. This was the first band
Wow.
we did. It's called Hurricane Eyes. This was when me and Scott started writing our first stuff. Now, on this, Scott hadn't sang on this demo. This was the singer from this band called, what do you call it, Evolution, and Ricky and the Roaches. So Ricky Roach sang on this. So this was my first foray into songwriting on my own, writing my own stuff. So that was that.
Awesome.
And then we moved on to this, which was called NNY. This was me and Scott, and this was just prior to the original Altered Minds. So what this basically NNY was, we couldn't come up with a name of the band, and there was a Vinnie Moore song out at that time called NNY, and it really stands for No Name Yet. So people be like, "What does that mean? Are you guys from New York?" I'm like, "No, it means we have no name for the band yet." So this became Altered Minds. So there's like 4 songs on this, which and it was kind of cool because when Chris came into the band, we really made things a bit more from like simple rock stuff to more, dual guitar, progressive in that Maiden vein. Um, but so now we're up to the band. We recorded the demo. David left. Alex is in the band now, and then we started gigging a lot. We got signed by a management company called JP Productions, and they had us gigging all over, like New York City, Long Island, playing with a bunch of other bands that were good friends of ours. This band Nation that we're still great friends with. We were always double billing with them, which was kind of cool because they were more of a hard rock outfit, and we were more of that progressive metal outfit. So it made for a good double bill. We were gigging for about good 2 years, still writing, and then Scott. We don't. To be honest, I don't even know why, but Scott just decided he didn't want to, play anymore. He didn't want to sing in the band anymore. He didn't want to be part of the band. Nothing like wasn't any fights or anything like that. Like I said, we've been friends for years. He just said he didn't want to do it anymore. So, now we're at the point where like we're finally doing stuff. We got our demo out. We're gigging everywhere. I'm like, holy crap, we need a singer. And getting a singer to sing in a progressive metal band and not be bad is very, very hard. I know you've
Yeah.
gone through it looking for singers for like the Maiden stuff, and our stuff was we were writing stuff that was in that vein. Nothing like crazy high pitch like Jeff Tate or Dickinson, but definitely in that that more metal, classic metal, new age British metal vein. And we had some
Yeah.
funny we
Was
had
it
some really funny auditions. We had one audition where the guy showed up. I think he was pretty drunk, and we just told him just to try singing over the Trooper, and it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. And he went outside the studio, and we were talking about it. Why did we just waste our time with this guy? And apparently, the guy heard everything we said, so he came in and he started begging us to give him another chance. And we were like, "No, we can't do this. We can't
okay?
do this."
Sorry,
Uh,
Ron. Um, was still the 90s you're talking about?
Yeah, this is probably like 93, 94 right now. Um, so then, after going through so many singers, we even actually got together with the singer from the band Awaken, Glenn DeGrossa, who is a good friend of mine. He was in between bands. He came down to try out, and we were gonna do something. We weren't really sure, but we got very, very lucky because a good friend of ours who was the vocal teacher at the guitar store I worked at, Danny Richards, is like, hey, I got someone for you who might be just, perfect for you guys. And so this is his band. This is Mike Accurso and his band Repeat Offender. There's Mike. There's Mike right there. See this? I have cassettes of all this stuff. But Mike came in and we were all like, holy crap, this guy can sing. And the funny thing is, Mike was not a big metal singer. He's just got really great rock vibes. He was a big fan of Freddie Mercury and Queen and stuff. And on the demo, his Repeat Offender demo, you can hear Freddie Mercury. He came in, and I think we auditioned him to Murders in the Rue Morgue because we used to open with that. And I think afterwards, me and Chris were just like, holy crap, this guy can sing. And he's just an absolutely phenomenal guy. Uh, Great, no attitude or anything, which was, with a singer, it's hard to find somebody like that. So he melted right in like perfect, you know. So we gigged probably for about a year, 2 years, did a lot of gigs with Mike. And then the grunge era started, and it was funny because Chris and Alex were always more they liked all different types of music, and at this point Alice in Chains was becoming big, you know, uh Pearl Jam and stuff, and they were veering more towards that style of writing, and I didn't want to do that. I wrote the way I wrote, so the band sort of just fell apart at that point. But nothing, like I said, no arguments was. We just decided, what, whatever. At that point, we were gigging so much and so much was going on, but there was, we weren't going to be rock stars, so we realized that. So we're like, all right, everybody go do your own thing, and it sort of just fell off to the side, and that was probably about 95. So we had a good run from 92 to about 95, gigging a lot, gigging everywhere, different band members. And then I think the other thing too is Alex was leaving because he had opportunities to do something different with a career, so he'd gone anyway. We had Mike Beato come in, who's another friend of mine, who came in, sang played bass with us for a while. But at that point, it almost felt like we were just trying to do gigs for the sake of doing gigs. We weren't really writing any music. Everybody had sort of lost their interest in it. I mean, like I said, the music scene changed. We were going from playing like good metal to like it was more grungy, and I didn't want to do that because I just wasn't into it. Now, don't get me wrong, I love that music and stuff, but I write twin guitar stuff. I'm into that. You know exactly, what I'm talking about. Maiden, Thin Lizzy, Priest, stuff like that. So that's where Altered Minds ended at that point. All on good, still good friends, best of friends. No arguments. Not like I hate you. I never want to see you in a band again or anything like that. So, and that was probably around 1995. So there's
Okay.
your beginnings of Altered Minds.
Okay, this is just the beginning, and this is a great story, Ron, about the Ultra Minds that I know about it from this one. Okay, I'm gonna full screen.
Oh yes, there it is. That is, which one is
And
that? Is that the European one? Yeah, no, that's the original one. Yeah, that's the original US version right there. Yes, and that's the
yeah,
that's that CD.
you sent me this CD, and Ron wrote about. Thank you, and I'm in this city, and I'm really happy to be in this work. And now I'm gonna talk about this resurrected time. And I know that this album was recorded remotely, which is quite different from the traditional studio experience. And do you want to talk about this resurrected time, or do you want to take 5 minutes about from 1995 to this one recorded in I don't remember,
We started recording
two
in
three years
2019. I think we released it
2019?
in
Yeah.
2021. Yeah, we started recording in 2019. So that
Okay.
whole thing was
So
not
yeah.
planned.
Yeah.
That record was not planned or anything. Um, COVID happened, and so we were all home. I was, a lot of us were still working. My drummer Mike works in the medical field, so he was working. Me working for FedEx, I was working. So um, but I had met Mike Maroney in like 2014 or 2015. He was playing drums in my friend Glenn's band Awaken, and me and Mike hit off a good friendship, and Mike was in the process of building a recording studio in his house, and he was like, "Hey, you know what? I'm building the studio in my house. You want to record a song or two just so I can get my bearings. It'll be cool. We're all stuck at home." And this is when Mike showed me how to start doing remote recording. Because back in the '90s, I owned a recording studio, and so I knew how to record. I had a full, analog studio, and so I was very familiar with recording. But I'd never done recording with a DAW, digital, or anything like that. But Mike's like, "Hey, listen, you got a laptop? Get this. Let's mess around. Let's record one or two songs just so I can get an idea of how things are and whatever." I was like, okay, cool. So I think originally we had just decided to record one song. I think it was Alone in the Dark. Uh, I had done all the guitars on it originally, and excuse me, we recorded the drums, and the drums came out amazing. They sounded great. And while we were in his studio, he's like, "Hey, you have any other songs?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got a bunch more." So we started jamming around, and next, one song turned into nine, and I'm like, "Shit, we need a bass player." And I called Mike Accurso right away because me and Mike always stayed in contact, still, best of friends. I'm like, "Dude, me and my drummer here, Mike Maroney, are gonna record some of the old Altered Minds tunes and some new stuff. Do you want in?" And he's like, "Yeah, of course. Of course I'll do it." So now at this point, I'm in Connecticut recording all my guitar parts, and Mike Maroney's on Long Island, Mike Accurso's on Long Island. So I'm like, we need a bass player because I started putting bass lines down, and I'm an absolutely horrendous bass player. I'm like, this isn't gonna cut it. If we're gonna make this sound good, we need a bass player. Um, Reached out to a bunch of different guys.
So originally you recorded the bass, right?
Oh yeah, it wasn't bass. It was just a guitar player trying to play bass. It was
Okay.
horrible. I have the original tracks and I listened to it. I'm like, oh my God. Thank God for Freddie Villano. so so I recorded it, and then at this point now, so social media is becoming big now. I think this is probably when I first met you, was like 2019, via Instagram, and we started,
Yeah.
and that's how it went. You met musicians in that respect. And that's when everybody was stuck at home. So it was like everybody's making guitar videos online. So you got to meet everybody. So I was going through bass players, sending the tracks out, never really got responses. Everybody's like, "Yeah, I'll do it," and I never got a response. And so Mike Maroney's like, "Hey, why don't we ask Freddie Villano?" I'm like, "Okay," because Freddie played on with Awaken with Mike, And he's like, you know Freddie, you worked with him at the guitar store. I'm like, yeah, I've known Freddie for the longest time. I hadn't seen Freddie probably since the late 90s, since probably like 97. But I called him up, I'm like, hey Freddie, you want to play on one or two songs? And he's like, yeah, definitely, definitely. So he put down the bass for Alone in the Dark, and I think he put down the bass for King of Deception. And he's like, hey, do you got any more? Let's do some more. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, we got all these tunes. So then Freddie's on board. He's like playing the bass, and it's absolutely killer, man. I still listen to his bass line soloed out, and I'm like, God damn, that sounds amazing. I had been talking to Chris Jacino at this time. I'm like, Chris, me and Mike Maroney and and Freddie are putting together some Altered Minds tune just for fun. We're going to record them. And he's like, oh, I don't know how to record remotely. And like I said, it's still COVID now, so we can't really all get together. He's like, I don't have a setup and everything. So I'm like, all right, you know what? No worries. Let me do this. And then I realized, every song had two guitar parts, two guitar solos, because me and Chris always shared solos. And to be honest, I was just lazy and I didn't want to write second guitar solos because it was always, me and Chris, our styles were so different, yet together we were like so good together. So because of social media, I had guitar player friends all over the place, all over the world. So, I threw out stuff to guys, Matthias Baeza in Chile. He played with us on the first Trooper song. I'm like, hey, do you want to track a solo? And he's like, yeah, for sure. Then I reached out to Dakota Amaker, who's in the Midwest, a phenomenal guitar player known as the Shredley. I'm like, do you want to play a solo on a song? And he's like, yeah, of course. And the next guy called Ben Higgins, who's an amazing online YouTube guitar teacher player. I'd been following him from years. I'd actually taken some lessons from him, and I'm like, dude, you want to play a solo, on Planet of the Crossings? And he's like, yeah, I'd love to. So now I got two solos left. I'm like, all right, what am I going to do? Am I going to write the solos or not? So then a good friend of mine who I had become friends with, same thing, off of social media, his name is Mike Kerr. He's a Brazilian guitar player who's just absolutely phenomenal. So melodic, so such chops and stuff. Met him online on YouTube and so forth. And it turns out he lives about an hour from me in Massachusetts. We became very good friends. I'm like, Mike, you want to drop a solo on a song? He's like, yeah, for sure. So then we have all the solos set up, and then we decided let's record a couple of covers because this is just for fun. This wasn't for anything but ourselves. Let's record a couple of covers. So we always used to play Man of the Silver Mountain live, like our own version, heavier version than the Rainbow version. So I'm like, let's record that. And I'm like, I need a guitar solo at the end. So I called up the guitar player Mike Flintz from the band Riot, who was my very first guitar teacher, who is a good friend of mine, lives on Long Island, and I reached out to him and I'm like, dude, you want to drop something? He's like, for sure. No worries, man. Send me something. So he jumped on, and now that we got all our players, so you got Matthias Baeza playing the first solo on King of Deception. Dakota Amaker takes the main solo in Alone in the Dark. Mike Kerr takes the main solo in Dreams Kill. Mike Flint takes the last solo in Man of the Silver Mountain. Ben Higgins takes the first solo in Planet of the Crossings. And last thing that we decided at the very last moment, we wanted to test our singer Mike and see if he could pull off some Dickinson. So like, let's record Where Eagles There, and let's record Flight of Icarus just for fun. We didn't even think we were going to put it on there because I didn't think Mike was going to be able to hit those highs. Well, Mike nailed Where Eagles There in one take, and you've heard it, and you
Wow.
can hear how his voice is on that. So we did that. Then we recorded Icarus, and then I called up a buddy of mine in Arizona, Josh. And I was like, Josh, he's a huge Adrian Smith fan. I'm like, dude, you want to drop an Adrian solo on Flight of Icarus? He's like, yeah. So everything was done. Everything was recorded. Now COVID's ending. So now we can sort of get together. We go and we record the vocals in Mike Maroney's studio in New York. We start doing all the mixing and stuff. And we're like, great, we're going to put this record out just for us, just for our families, our friends, whatever. We put it out, and since we put it through our distribution, it was streaming everywhere. It was on YouTube, on Apple Music, everything. All of a sudden, I got an email from this gentleman named Anderson Tiago in Holland, He's like, "Hey, I have this YouTube page called The New Wave of Traditional Heavy Metal." He goes, "I heard your band. I'd like to feature you on it." And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess." We didn't even know that we were on there. And in like a week, we had over 20,000 hits, and people were just like, "Where do we get this? Where do we get this?" And I was like, "Holy crap!" This sort of took off. So we had a couple of thousand CDs made, and they sold out like that. We ended up selling a bunch in the U.S., and then we had a record label in Germany reach out to us, going, "Hey, we want to buy a bunch of your CDs and try to sell them here and see how the reaction is." So that went good, and then I started getting like these messages from metal magazines in Europe that had caught wind of this somehow, and we started doing I started doing interviews like this with these metal magazines. This one magazine in France, uh, the guy really helped us out. He interviewed me and he reached out to a bunch of different record labels, going, "Hey, you got to listen to these guys." Now, mind you, we're not a band. We're just five friends that got together and like, let's record some songs. So next, we're getting offers from record labels. "Hey, we want to put out your record here. We want to do a European version of it." And I was like, "Yeah, we're really not a band, but it sounds great." So this gentleman from Greece named Chris Papdakis contacted me. He goes, "Hey, I want to interview you for a Greek metal magazine." And we did the interview, and then he's like, "Listen, I work for a record label called Arcane Steel Gallery, and we'd like to put out a European version of your album." I was like, "Wow, that's fantastic." He's like, "But here's the catch: we don't want to put the cover songs on, but do you have the original demo with Scott singing on it?" It was the 4-song demo, and I'm like, "Yeah, actually, I do. I have the masters." He's like, "We want to put out a version with your six originals that you did, and instead of the covers, we're gonna put out a bonus with just the original demo." And that would turned out to be this one, which was made by these guys. They did an incredible job. I got to get a new case, but
So
they
this is another version.
this is the European version, which
Mm,
is
okay.
so the songs on the European version are as opposed to the US version. So the US version has got the six originals and the three covers, right? It's got Man of the Silver Mountain, Flight of
Yeah,
Icarus, and Where Eagles Dare. This version
yeah.
uh has got the six originals, but it has the original 1992 demo that we had made with Scott Estrada singing and the original members of Altered Minds. And it's so raw, unproduced, like the demo. You got to really hear what it was like, a bunch of 20-year-olds recording their first demo. And it's amazing. It was recorded without a click, everything's all over the place, but that was cool because now you listen back and I'm like, holy cow, look how different things got when you learned how to record, when you learned how to do stuff. So they put this out, and we sold a lot of these. They're still selling, and it was amazing. The guys over at Arcane Steel and Steel Gallery have been phenomenal, and they're working with us hopefully on the next record, which should be hopefully done this year. So that's where we're caught up with right now and how that came about. Just a couple of guys that were friends decided let's record some songs, and it turned into getting a record deal with a label in Greece. So
Okay. We are gonna talk about the next album soon. Now, I'm gonna ask you about a lot of great musicians. One of the things that makes the album stand out is the amazing lineup, and I want to talk about your musical influences. What are some of your biggest musical influences, and how have they shaped the sound of Action Minds? A part of Iron Maiden, of course. Do you have other bands that influenced your album, your playing, about you and about the other members?
yeah, I mean, in a sense, all the guys in the band now, really, aside from Mike or Curso, are metalheads. From the core. I mean, you got Freddie, the bass player, who is a huge fan of Geezer Butler, Steve Harris. And Freddie's played with everybody. He's played with Quiet Riot. He's played with the Rods. He just did a tour with the Rods. He's playing with Holy Mother. He's played with us. He's played with Dee Snider and Al Petrelli. But when I needed a bass player for this vibe, I'm like, Freddie fit right in because he's got that same core of what I listen to. Your Maiden, Fate's Warning, Queensryche, Priest, all twin guitar stuff. Um, I became a metalhead because my first concert was I saw Judas Priest open up for Kiss. I played guitar because of Ace Frehley, because who didn't want to be cool and look like Ace Frehley and play guitar? So I got to see Kiss, and then I saw Judas Priest, and it was during the British Steel tour, and I was just blown away. It was the first time I'd heard Judas Priest, and I was like, these guys are incredible. Two guitars in a band. Because Kiss was doing the two guitar thing, but Ace was the lead player. Paul played rhythm, and they did harmonies here and there. But when I heard Judas Priest for the first time, it really hit me like, wow, this is what two guitar players could do. Now, mind you, I wasn't playing guitar or anything this time. I was just becoming more into heavy metal. And then I think I was 14 or 15, and I saw Maiden for the first time during the Killers tour, and I was like, wow, that that's just something else, right? Um, by the time I started playing guitar, Peace of Mind had just come out. Very first song I ever learned on guitar, very horribly bad, was The Trooper. Because all my friends were guitar players. We had a clique of us growing up, and they'd all been playing guitar for years. So we were like 15, 16 years old. They were already playing guitars. They were great. So I got to learn from them. And at that point, Peace of Mind came out, and Blizzard of Oz had just come out, Diary of a Madman. So guitar playing at that point was getting huge. So that's where I started getting a lot of my influences with the two guitar thing. I will tell you right now, the harmony thing is totally Maiden. My love for Maiden made me, even to this day, when I write stuff, Altered Minds does not sound like Iron Maiden. That is a big thing I need to emphasize. We a little bit more progressive. I think my Queensryche Fates Warning influences come out more in that respect, but I take advantage of the fact that it's two guitar players. I write rhythm wise. I write different chord voicings, riffs. I love to harmonize riffs. And Chris had the same love for that too. And that's why we clicked, because we were like, yo, this has got to be harmonized. This would be a great riff in harmony and so forth. And so me and Chris were right on board with that. And like I said, Freddie, same influences. So when Freddie jumped on board, it clicked. Mike Maroney is a huge Metallica fan and a Dream Theater fan. If you listen to his playing on the last Awaken album, you'll hear his influences on there. But same thing, a metalhead at heart. All of us have that same
Yeah,
core of
he's a good drummer. I saw a recent video playing Where He Goes There, and wow, he's a great drummer. He's a
Yeah,
really
he
great
is,
drummer.
and he's also a phenomenal engineer. He's the one me and him engineered and mixed the last album, which he did an amazing job on. But yeah, he's an amazing drummer, dude. And his influences, you hear a lot of Mike Portnoy in his playing, but one of his favorite drummers is like Lars Ulrich, which I always give him flack for. But that's what we do. You're friends, and you give him flack because everybody makes fun of Lars Ulrich, right? It's just, I guess, you should too. It's like everybody hates Nickelback and everybody makes fun of Lars Ulrich. But yeah, those are Mike's influences. And when it comes together, it's great. How Mike Accurso, who is not a metalhead, comes in, and he's got a vocalist, the pipes of a metal singer. So what's kind of cool is when we get together with him, like me and Chris and Mike had gotten together early last year and started writing for the new album. And what's great about Mike in the studio is I can come up with a melody, Chris will come up with a melody, and I'll give it to Mike. I go, hey, this is the melody of the song. Do your thing. And he will take it and rip it up. He'll give it that mellow vibe, but then he's a very bluesy rock singer. So you'll hear like a little bit like bluesy stuff in there. I think, and that's what makes us a little bit different than all these bands that have like a Ray Alder type singer from Fates Warning, Jeff Tate, Todd Latour, where it's like, you expect to be those screaming high vocals and stuff, but Mike has got so much different influences in his vocals that you hear it come across in his singing. Like you listen to the one song on Destiny Calls, the song Destiny Calls, just the beginning, he does like this really cool bluesy humming thing that Scott never did. Scott was more a straightforward metal singer. He does stuff like in What song was it? In Love Kills. I forgot what I renamed it. Somniot Oxidus. It's whatever. But he does just the way he comes in with the vocal. It's got that really bluesy feel to it. So we always say he's the metal version of Steve Perry from Journey. So I'm grateful for that. And he is an absolutely wonderful guy, down to earth, and one of my best friends. So that's how all our influences got together. No egos with any of us. We all rip on each other. We all give each other flack. But when it comes down to putting the music down, total professionals. And everybody's a working musician for the most part. Chris teaches guitar in college. He's playing with multiple bands. Micah Cursos plays with tons of bands. Freddie, as I told you, is a touring bass player, studio player, and Mike Maroney's played with numerous bands, and he's a phenomenal engineer. So that's your influences with Altered Minds now. The new stuff for the new record is what we took is we took some older songs and we actually revamped them. I made them a little bit more heavier, a little more progressive. Because over the years, I think my Fates Warning influence has come through more than my Maiden influence. That's why when I was talking to you about, people like, oh, you're a big Maiden head, your band must sound like Maiden. You've heard the band. We have Maiden influences in there, right? But you wouldn't say we're like a Maiden cover band or anything, right? I don't know.
Okay, okay, a lot of influences
Yeah,
here,
lots.
guys. Guys, go to listen to the Ultra Minds after this live. And you were talking about your first Maiden concert was Killers too, right?
Yeah, Killers with Paul Diano. I think I was 14 years old, in a small club on Long Island.
Wow.
Yeah, and
And
that's
then I
that's when I
remember
first discovered Maiden. Yeah,
with Paul Young, okay. And then I remember another gig you saw live in 1988 with somewhere, not somewhere, but Seven Son or Seven
yeah,
Son tour in a little club, maybe a secret gig
yep,
they made, right?
yeah. So there was a club in New York back then. There was some amazing places to play in New York and Brooklyn. You had the China Club in New York, the Marquee, the Limelight, and there was one club that was like famous. It was I wouldn't say underground, but it was a small metal club in Brooklyn called L'Amour. Uh, you ask any
Lamour
band,
Rocks, right?
yeah, L'Amour rocks. L'Amour in Brooklyn. You can ask anybody, any metal bands from that day. What do you remember about New York? And everybody's gonna say L'Amour. L'Amour. I mean, you'll even see pictures of Maiden where the guys are wearing L'Amour rock T-shirts. I actually met Steve Harris and Nico McBrain in L'Amour about a year prior to that. We went to see Fates Warning, and they were there seeing Fates Warning, and we sort of met them at the VIP bar. First time I got to meet Steve Harris and Nico McBrain, and they were there to see Fates Warning. But I remember I think it was a Sunday afternoon. We were out on Long Island hanging out, and a friend of mine worked for a local radio station on Long Island called WBAB, and he's like, "Hey, just a heads up, Maiden is playing a secret show tonight in Brooklyn." He goes, "It's unannounced." He goes, "If I was you, I would drive into Brooklyn and go check out the show." Now, me and my friends, it was me and like four of my friends. I'm like, dude, we got to drive to Brooklyn. None of us have ever been to Lemoore. Okay, we lived on Long Island. It's about a 40-minute drive to Brooklyn to this place, but Lemoore was famous. We'd never been there for like a secret show. Like I said, I'd seen Fates Warning there. I'd seen Ace Frehley there, but my friends like just go. I guarantee you it's going to be Maiden. And so we get there, and there's like nobody really outside the club. And some guy comes up scalping tickets. He's like, "Hey, you guys want in?" He's like 25 bucks. For that time was expensive for a ticket, right? And it said on the ticket, Charlotte and the Harlots. And I'm like, what are the odds? I'm like, Charlotte the Harlot. I'm like, what are the odds, right? So we're like, screw it, let's go, right? We bought 25 bucks. We go in, and the place is completely packed. Completely packed. We somehow work our way up to the front of the stage. Now, mind you, at this point, we still don't know it's Iron Maiden. Okay, it could be a Maiden cover band. We don't even know. But the place is packed. We get in there, up at the front, holding onto the stage. All of a sudden, the beginning of Moonchild starts, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I mean, you've been to the Cart and Horses, right?
Yeah,
Have you gone downstairs and seen the stage area downstairs?
yeah.
That's how big L'Amour's was. Now imagine seeing Maiden in their prime just before the Seventh Son tour starts, doing a surprise show in a small club like that in New York.
Yeah,
That's
I
what it
imagine
was.
it was awesome, and I guess people down there know about that secret gig. If you tell me that it was so crowded. Yeah, I went there in England in Carlton Horses last year, and the owner told me that people know that the stage was in the pub. Okay, you enter
Yep.
in the club, and the stage was on the left, a little stage, and the owner told me I reserved you a table under the picture. The table was in the place where before there was the stage.
Yep.
So that was my table, and just on the wall of the table was the picture of the band Maiden, of course. Then the owner take me for a tour in downstairs, and yeah, it was of course compared with the Maiden concert, a small club, but in general, I would say in England, in London, it's a good club. It's a big club, in my opinion, and yeah, it's awesome listening, talking about someone like you that saw Maiden live in that original period, and the 80s was is my favorite period of Maiden. I was born just in '86, so I I started listening Maiden to the brand new world. Okay, so I had the chance of seeing them live from early days, then the remake of Seven Son and the
Yeah.
Last Summer in Time, and yeah, I okay. I want. Do you want to talk about Maiden concerts of the '80s? You remember?
Craziest show I ever seen was 1982, Priest and the Beast. Maiden on the Number of Beast tour, opening up for Judas Priest at Madison Square Garden during the Screaming for Vengeance tour. Holy crap. You want to talk about both bands in their prime. That was amazing. I mean,
Wow,
nothing will top for me is L'Amour show because it was you're right there, and it's funny on YouTube. There's a live video of it, and somewhere on the video you could see me, my hand holding onto the monitor, and Bruce Dickinson stepping on my hand. But there's no way I was gonna leave that front of the stage.
wow,
But so many Maiden shows. I'd seen Maiden in 1986. I saw them at the Hammersmith Odeon in England. That was the first time seeing a concert overseas. Um, and I remember seeing them. Another great tour was when I saw the Brave New World tour to see Halford and Queensryche opening up for Maiden. That was an amazing triple bill. There's just so many Maiden shows I've seen, over the years, and one of the greatest shows was in 2019, the Legacy of the Beast tour, taking my two daughters who at that time I think were probably 11 and 12 years old, taking
wow,
them to see Maiden. Now they grew up on metal, my two daughters, so they know all Maiden stuff. Now they listen to K-pop, and I'm not going to even argue with that. But I took them to Maiden 2 or 3 months ago too, and I caught them still
yeah,
singing Maiden songs. But that was one of my favorite Maiden shows because my daughters were there, and I have videos of my daughters like singing "Run to the Hills" and stuff. And then when we saw them just the last tour, I have videos of them like singing "Can I Play with Madness" and "Wasted Years," and I caught them on video, and so those were those very special Maiden shows for me. But every single time I see him, man, and especially now that I'm such a big aficionado of Adrian Smith's guitar playing, to see Adrian live every time. Um, During the last Legacy of the Beast tour, I got to go front row and I was in front of Adrian and Dave the whole show, and I was just like, I was in awe watching the guy play, and they never disappoint, man. They never disappoint. It's live. They're probably one of the best bands ever live. The energy they have, and stuff. Their newer stuff's gotten very progressive. It's hard to compare them to, like, the '80s era, but it's still Maiden. Let them do what they want to do, and they have always had. I mean, one of the greatest comeback albums by any band ever, if you ask me, is Brave New World. When Bruce and Adrian came back in the band and that classic Maiden sound was redefined, man, you know, it was like one of the happiest things, man, to be able to hear the Wicker Man for the first time and hearing Adrian Smith solo again. That was so missed when he left Maiden, the songwriting and stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, this, Virtual 11 and that stuff was great. I like Blaze Bailey. I think some of the songs are great, but having Adrian back in the band, man, that Maiden sound returned, because they
Yeah,
veered away for that for a while, and that's why no matter how many times I've seen them, a lot, not much compared to some of the Maiden fans, but they never disappoint, and it's still, even when I write, Maiden's always in the back of my mind, like more so now as a solo player, because now when I write solos for songs, I don't think about Maiden as band. I go, what would Adrian Smith do? How's Adrian? Because Adrian's playing is like his influences are like so many of my influences: Michael Schenker, Gary Moore, Thin Lizzy. Adrian writes with that full sense of melody, and that's why it's funny when you and me did that one collab for "Diet Your Boots On." You also are a huge Adrian Smith fan, and I threw a curveball at you
yeah,
and said you're going to do the Dave Murray solo, and I remember you were like, I'm like, no, 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 you're
yeah,
doing Dave Murray, I'm doing Adrian Smith this time.
yeah,
So, but I think you understand that and you get that vibe as well. Because I hear it in your playing, even on your original stuff. We both have that huge Adrian influence in our playing, right?
yeah. Yeah, I remember. For those who don't know, we played, yeah, that with your boots on and Rothschild. That it came out last week, I
Yeah,
guess,
last
2 weeks
week we
ago.
we just put
Last
the
week.
video out.
Yeah, it was of course dedicated to Paul Diano, and
Mhm.
we had a lot of fun on Instagram. This is another project, not the Maiden team, but as a huge fan of Maiden, we when there are opportunity like this, I have always to say yes, even if Ron asks me to play Dave Murray, and I
No, this
can.
time I let you
So,
play the Adrian parts. You and Mariano played the Adrians. I took the Murray solo this time.
yeah, this time, yeah,
But this was what was fun about this was another international collab. Just friends that we've all met each other via social media. I mean, think about it. It's a world project. You're from Italy. I'm from the States. The drummer Steve is from the States. Kurt is the bass player is from the UK. I know you. I think you've worked with him before, maybe. Tupo's from Finland, and Mariano, who's got his own group, Maiden group called Maiden the World Collab, which he got me involved in a couple songs. So, it was another international project, and it was kind of cool that we did the whole three guitar player bit, right? Like sort of like Maiden, how you and Mariano switched off on the Adrian licks, and I took the Dave thing. So it was almost like more true to a Maiden feel, and I think it came out great, man. All three of us, as far as guitar players, really melted well. Considering the whole thing's done remotely, we're all different parts of the world, and that's the beauty of all this, and that's why. This one time I let you play the Adrian part, but next time it's me.
yeah, yeah, a lot of fun. But now we come back talking about Ultra Minds and just take a sec. Okay, you mentioned that Ultra Minds is working on a new album. So let's talk about what's coming next. So can you give us any details about the next Ultra Minds album? What can
Yes.
fans expect?
So pretty much after the first album was done, we just like I told you, the first album was just done as a thing for fun. Well, after it took off, and we got the deal with Arcane Steel to put the record out and everything. Everybody's like, you got to put out another record. You got to put it out on the record. So I already had songs written. That I never thought I'd do anything with. And I started right away doing pre-production on stuff. What I usually do with pre-production is I'll either just take a click track or I'll take a drums track that I'll make. Which, by the way, I make up drums sometimes, and my drummer Mike Maroney's like, "Please stop making up drum tracks. You really have no idea what you're doing." So I just make them as a reference. Thank God I have a good drummer like Mike to steer me in. But I did 10 tunes, tracked them, and then me and Mike Maroney have already tracked drums on a bunch of the songs. Chris Chicino now is, since I got him set up and he's got himself set up with his remote studio in the house. He's recording his guitar solos. We did scratch vocals on everything last time we were at Chris's house, so Mike's Curso's got his reference vocals down. This one is going to be all altered minds. Me and Chris Chicino on guitars, Freddie on bass, Mike Curso on vocals, and Maroney on drums. We are putting a special cover on there. I'm not going to tell you what it is. That's going to be a surprise. It'll be a bonus track. But one of the great moments on this is a song that was written by, sort of like me, Chris, and my friend Pete Carapacis from Sound the Sirens. An absolutely phenomenal guitar player and songwriter who, same thing, I met him on social media. He lives an hour north of me in Massachusetts. His band Sound the Sirens, he's got done 2 albums. He's working on the next one. Really amazing instrumental stuff. Super melodic, great songwriter. He asked me to play it on his last album. I played a solo on a song. This time, what's funny is he had written a song where he asked me to play a solo on, and the beginning of the solo section had this little acoustic bit that went into a heavier bit. So I'd written a full solo, acoustic solo into that. At the last minute, he decided to cut that, so he rearranged the song. So after his album came out, I'm like, hey, excuse me. I said, what did we ever do with that acoustic bit? He's like, I still got it floating around. I go, send it to me. Send it to me and let's see what we could do with it. So we ended up writing, he sent me the acoustic bit. I made it into a full song, wrote harmony guitars, melody for it, and so forth. And then what we did is I had Chris Jacino. I go, Chris, me and Pete are working on this. I want to put it on the Altered Minds record. Um, each of us will write our own solo for it and our own harmony melody line, and since all three of us are different players, it melted together great. So then Pete wrote the rhythm, then I started putting overdubs on that, and then Chris got the track and he started putting overdubs, and then we did our own soul sections, and in the end, the song came out really beautiful. Excuse me, it's called "From Darkness Comes Light." The whole vibe of this album, I'm sorry, I'm choking, is called "My Internal Darkness." So it's a really dark, like, the theme is like a vampiric theme. I started watching vampire movies and I started writing lyrics for vampire stuff, right? So this one, the way the album culminates is with this song. It would be similar to if the outro on Maiden's The Prophecy, how they went with that whole acoustic thing, but we did a
Cool.
full song. So Pete wrote that with me and Chris. I would give Pete full credit for it because it was his song that I sort of took and made my own stuff. And sorry, it's that's really something special. The rest of the album, all originals. A couple of songs that me and Chris had rewrote. Actually, all the stuff, I'd say half the album was songs that we had written in the past, but I put the new Altered Mind sound to it, if you will. Made it a little bit more progressive. Definitely, like I said, influence wise, Queensryche and Fate's Warning. And what's great is the way I do it is I record all the rhythm guitars, and then I send the tracks to Chris, and I go put in your touches. So he puts his solos in, overdubs that he wants to use, and then when I got all the tracks here, like I'm listening to the tracks today, and it's kind of cool because it's now, even though we're not in the same room writing, we still got that same vibe. So everything is pretty much tracked. Freddie's in the process of doing his bass guitars. I'm going to be getting in the studio with Maroney a couple of weeks to finish tracking all the drums. If all goes well, I know the label has been busting me, going, "Hey, when are we going to hear new stuff? When are we going to hear new stuff?" We're hoping by the end of the year you will have a 10-song new Altered Minds record out, with one bonus track. I'm not going to say anything about the bonus, but But so far, the guitar work that Chris has sent me is just so good. He's such an amazing player, man. So different from me, yet so much like me. Uh, in the case of like writing with a melodic sense in solo wise, and I can't say enough about Mike Curso's vocals, Freddie's bass, and Maroney's drums. You know, it's a funny thing, right? You being Italian, you know, like 90% of my band aside from me is Italian, right? Freddie Villano,
Yeah,
Michael Accurso,
I
Michael
noticed that.
Maroney, right? We're all a bunch of Italians. And remember
If
when I
they
when I
were
saw you in
if they
Italy?
were here, if they were here, I would ask that question. Are you Italian?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Maroney's family is from Naples. You know, I'm not
Wow.
sure what Freddie and Mike's family, Curso's families are, but yeah. I mean, remember when I was with you in Italy? I had people asking me, you know, what part of Italy you're from because my I could sort of speak Italian. I'm like, I'm not Italian. I'm
Yeah,
just from New York. I know
we
Italians.
usually say we are related to when
Yeah.
people are from the same area.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, so you know, I think I let you heard a couple of cuts. I've sent a few songs out to just very close people to let them hear it, and so far the reaction we've got from people are like, "Oh my God, when are we going to hear the rest of it?" So that's sort of a good kick in the ass to the guys I work with. Now, the thing that's kind of tough with it, why it hasn't been completed, all of us have day jobs, and all of us are, you know, apart from each other. Freddie lives in upstate New York, which is 4 hours north of Long Island. I'm about 2 hours north of Long Island. Uh, Accurso, Maroney, and Jacino all live close to each other. So you know, trying to get all of us together at the same time, especially when everybody's got different like side gigs going on, it's tough. But now, everybody's, you know, like I said, Chris is writing his guitar parts. He's already flown me over a bunch of his solos that I'm working on today. And then I had a nice long talk with Mike Maroney, the drummer, yesterday, who's obviously me and him engineer and everything, and. I told him I have the rhythms done, but now he wants me to try redoing some using DIs with different tones. So, you know, we want it to be better than the last one. And, you know, I'm very fortunate too that I've become good friends with Chris Harris, the Zeus producer, who is Queensryche's producer. He's produced tons of band, and he's like, I want to work with you guys when you're ready. You know, so I told him, I go, let me get all our tracking done. So, you know, it'll be kind of great to work with him and have a name like that, you know, with us, associated with us. But but I've been putting out snippets here and there of stuff. Like I said, I've sent you stuff to hear because I don't want to, you know, play it for everybody. But the reaction we've got to the stuff we sent out has been great, and it is heavier than the last stuff. Um, and I'm excited for it, man, because when I hear everything coming together, when I hear Chris's guitar parts come in, and I put it in the mix with my stuff, and I'm just like, this is going to be really good, you know. So I'm, you know, I'll give updates as it goes along, but we're hoping by the end of the year. I know the label because Costas, the owner of the label, sent me a message. He's like, "Yeah, we're waiting for the record. What's going on?" So hopefully we'll get that out by the end of this year, and I'm
Okay.
sure nobody will be disappointed. I hope not. And we got the artwork, which I'm not going to show you yet, is being done. We met this photographer who is a amazing photographer in Germany who was a supporter of the band. You know, I'd seen some of his artwork, his prints, and I was like, "Hey, you know, that's an amazing picture that you took. You know, would you like to sell it? You know, we'd love to use it for our album cover." And the guy is amazing. His name's Sven Jacob. You can follow him on Instagram. Absolutely phenomenal photographer out of Germany. He's like, "Listen," he goes, "I'll give you the prints." He goes, "Just give me, you know, just give me credit on the album. You know, thank me on the album." And I was like, "Dude, that's amazing." So I'm gonna be doing a video probably later in the weekend. You know, showing the artwork. He actually
Okay.
sent it to me. I have it still unopened right here. This is the original print
Wow.
set. It's going to be the cover of the new Altered Minds artwork.
Wow.
And he's a phenomenal photographer. And same thing. This is all through social media, man. He heard the band
Why
on social media.
you didn't open yet?
I've just been so busy, and I want to do a proper viewing of it. The guys in the band have not even seen it yet. Okay, I know what it is, and I've shown it to Mike Maroney. Sent him some pictures. I go, hey, this is what we're gonna use, and he's like, yeah, it's really cool. So I want to do a proper showing of it because it's really amazing, and that's what like I said, once again, amazing thing, all because of social media. This band has taken off. Where we were looking just yesterday, the day before, I was looking at like you go to Spotify artist page and it tells you where people are listening to your band. And I look at the countries and the places that our bands listen to on Spotify and Apple Music, and it really blows me away. Because what's funny is, me and Chris Justino laugh about it. Back in the '90s when we were really trying to be in a band, really trying to gig, trying to get something, nothing ever happened. Meanwhile, we decide, hey, for fun, let's put out a record. Now suddenly here we are putting out another record, and people are like, "When's the next album coming out?" So
Yeah.
it's amazing how life sort of happens, right? And now I
Yeah.
can afford to buy stuff. That's why I have so many guitars now. Because back then I couldn't afford to buy lunch. I had two guitars and I was happy. Now I'm like, I got a wall of guitars
Do
I
you
can
want to
choose
show
from.
your wall? No, maybe later. Maybe later. Okay, maybe
Okay,
later.
whatever. You tell me,
I
but
I have the another question about your guitar wall. So now I wanted to talk about the metal scene in New York or New York City today. New York has always been a major hub for rock and metal. How would you describe the current metal scene in New York, and how has it changed over the years?
right now, I mean, from my perspective, it's pretty underground. There are some good metal clubs still in New York, and when the local bands that go out and play these shows still have a good draw. But it's not like in the '90s and the '80s there was clubs all over New York to play in the city on Long Island, like major clubs where you had national acts playing. Where you could go into a club on Long Island called Sundance, which held maybe 300 people. And on any given weekend, one weekend Extreme is playing, one weekend Anthrax is playing. Now the music scene, from what I can see, it's really all cover bands. And that's what Chris Chacino plays in a couple of different cover bands because it pays bills. Mike Accurso, the singer, plays in a bunch of cover bands because it pays bills. But he just loves singing, so he plays with a lot of different bands. But from a metal standpoint, where the metal scene really is up in New England, up here in New England, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. I mean, Berkeley University is here in Massachusetts, right? Bands like Dream Theater came out of there and everything. So the
Yeah,
metal
yeah,
scene up here is very big. A lot of venues up here to play. Um, New York, Long Island still has some, venues and Brooklyn, I would say too. Not so much Manhattan. Manhattan isn't. I don't think there's really any places for like you see bands playing. Not even underground. It's more like Brooklyn, maybe a couple places in Queens and a couple on Long Island. But in comparison, New England's big. I mean, there's even in Connecticut where I live, you've got a lot of metal bands playing here. Uh, a lot of
oh,
heavier stuff. I mean, metal's evolved so differently here, in the States. A lot of hardcore, like metalcore, stuff like that, But you still have, you'll have your cover bands doing Maiden shows, and because there is a lot of Maiden cover bands, and the place is packed out because everybody loves Maiden. But from an original standpoint, you got places like in Boston, in New Hampshire, which is it's very tight. Okay, when I say New Hampshire, I say Massachusetts, Connecticut. You got to
okay.
figure it's 45 minutes to an hour driving, so it's pretty close. And there is a lot of metal places to play up here, and the type of metal you hear will be from your Dream Theater style all the way to like super like hardcore. Uh, you know, Stuff like Arch Enemy, Halo Effect, stuff like that. So it's a good variety. Freddie just got back from California. He
And
went to the NAM show
Ron, do
and he
you?
did shows there. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, Ron. Do you have any upcoming show, live show, or touring plans?
Well, they people kept asking us to do shows, so we decided that once we finish this next record, we'll do a record release, album, CD release, call it what you will, and probably we'll be in Long Island because that's where the guys in the band are from, and there are places to do gigs there. So right now, we just want to finish this, and then we'll do it. And then I'm doing so many side projects playing. I've been fortunate to be asked to play in a bunch of different bands, records, doing a solo here and there, and I'm also in the process of recording. a couple of different bands. A friend of mine, Will Thorpe, is putting out a record, and I'm engineering and producing that with him. So right now we're just trying to get our thing done, and once it's done, then we're gonna do a full show, and it'll probably be either in Queens, Brooklyn, or Long Island. I mean, like I said, at that point, there is enough places to play. It's just right now in New York, it's more of a cover scene. Cover bands playing everywhere. Up here, you can get more original music. But we'll do that. And I've been asked up here too to two shows, but I'm the only one up here, so I'm still a Long Islander, New Yorker at heart. So whatever we do is going to be down in New York. It'll probably be after the summer once we got everything ready to be released. So that's that where that goes.
Okay, we are looking forward to listening to the upcoming album. And now I wanted to talk about fan engagement. How do you connect with your fans? Of course, with social networks, and what has been one of your most memorable interaction with them?
Well, obviously, the man who did the album cover, who's doing the album cover, was definitely one of the most memorable. Where you just
Yeah.
get a random message from somebody on Instagram saying, "Hey, I got your record. I've been listening to it." He goes, I'm a big supporter, and I'm just became friends, and I'm looking at his artwork, and I was like, "Wow, you're a phenomenal photographer. I'd love to use one of your prints." And the guy says, "You don't have to pay me. Just put my name on the record and get me a copy." And I was just
Yeah.
like, "Wow." And then I had someone send me a Funko Pop from Belgium of me. Let me see if I can show it to you. Where is it? Hang out.
Okay.
So this was sent to me by a supporter in Belgium. Somebody made a Funko Pop of me. I have a lightsaber because I'm a
Wow.
Star Wars fan and a geek. So this is kind
Uh,
of the weird stuff, right? Um, I remember when I was in Amsterdam, I ran into someone who was staring at me, and I'm like, "Do I know you?" And they're like, "Hey, are you in this so and so band?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, "Yeah, I follow you on Instagram." I'm like, "Holy crap, that's bizarre," you know. But people are
that's
so
cool.
cool, I mean, I have a friend of mine that is in Amsterdam. His name is Erwin Lucas, and he's writes Maiden books, and I became friends with him. And he did a review on the band's album. We sent him an autographed copy, and his followers started following us, and his followers, and that's how it grows. And everybody I've spoken to is just so super cool. I got a friend of mine and I consider all these people friends now, right? A gentleman in Germany who keeps asking me when we go on tour if he can hang out backstage. And if I said, "Yeah, you hang out backstage, I'll get you hookers and cocaine so you feel like you're in the 80s." So stuff like that. But yeah, it's just amazing. Yeah, and then to become friends with so many other bands. Um, like I said, I've been asked to play on a bunch of different bands' records, which is still amazing because I think back to when I was, first learning how to play guitar, how horrendous I was. And, I would never even have thought of anything like this. And now, I get to play on other people's stuff, and it's absolutely amazing. And this is all 100% organically grown through word of mouth through social media. We don't do any sort of ad campaigns, anything like that. Given the record label, when they put out the CD, they did do some really cool stuff for us. They got us played on Australian radio, which we got an amazing review on. A bunch of magazines did reviews on it and stuff. So from that point, yeah, that was great. But to start off just homegrown and organic, and now all these people are I consider friends because I mean, look at you and me. We've been
Yeah.
knowing each other for shit almost 10 years, and what happened last summer? You and me are hanging out in Italy eating pizza and having limoncello, right? I mean, that's how it works, right?
Yeah. That was great. Yeah, that was great. And we say the world is small.
It is, it is. That's what social
Like you
media
see
has
in
done. It's
America.
made everything so close to each other.
Yeah. And the next question is was about this topic. You talked about musicians in the 80s when there are lots of musicians and guitarists, heavy metal guitarists. Everybody wanted to play guitar in the 80s. Currently, we have lot of people playing on Instagram, social media, but I don't know. I'm talking about Italy, of course. I don't know if in USA is the same, but there are less people playing music, playing rock music, playing guitars. But yeah, what advice would you give to young musicians who are looking to form a band or start a music career?
You know, it's kind of cool here. A big difference I noticed with Europe and here. You were saying like how the music scenes are different there. I've come to notice that like a lot of these huge guitar players, your Paul Gilberts, Eric Steckel, guys like that, do a lot more shows in Europe, do a lot more clinics in Europe. I mean, I don't know how many pictures I've seen of you going to see all these clinics, and I'm like so jealous.
Yeah,
These are American players, but there's
yeah,
no.
but there was before the COVID era, before
But
the lockdown era. Then right after the lockdown era, um, particularly in my area and in the South Italy, but I guess in all Italy, clubs closed, live clubs starting closing, and less clubs play live music or heavy metal music. Now, maybe from 6 months, okay, maybe something is changing. But I remember like 10 years ago, I was every week on Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, live music. In Napoli, Caserta, of course, in my area, there were lots of clubs. But then, after the lockdown, of course, the crisis, we lost this rock scene, this music scene. Now it's coming. It's coming out that there are lots of concerts. We will have Blaze Bailey. He will play in my city in February, and I'm gonna go listen to him live, of course. And I hope this is just the start of a new live music era in here in Italy. Now, Ron, I wanted to start now a little game, okay?
Oh, before we start, let me just say one thing. When you asked me about what I
Okay.
think new bands should do,
Yeah,
there
yeah.
is a certain
Right.
resurgence here with younger guitar players now learning what is considered to us now classic metal, which is really kind of cool. I was in a guitar store a couple of weeks ago, and I see like a 14-year-old kid cranking out Maiden riffs, and I was like, that's kind of cool.
That's
So
cool.
it's coming back around. Original music here, like I said, more up north in the metropolitan Boston area because there's a lot of metal places to play there. So but Europe still has a better hold. A lot of the touring musicians from here you think American players are doing more shows over there than here. So but the younger generation, man, it's kind of cool to hear someone sitting in there and not playing like "Sweet Child of Mine" and hearing him crank out like the opening to Wicker Man or the riff from "Hallowed Be Thy Name."
Yeah,
That's kind of like wow. So
yeah.
that's what I wanted to
That's cool.
say about that.
Yeah, it's cool. And now, before starting the game, just give me a sec. We have some comments. And Sorao, I guess, is from Italy. Hi, Enzo. And of course, Luigi Cassandra, my father. And this is the person who influenced my music because I grew up with listening to Pink Floyd, Deep Purple, Queen. I still have my father's LPs, okay, vinyls, Purple, Pink Floyd, Queen and lot of music, metal music, White Snake. And then I started listening to Maiden, and I influenced my father of listening to Maiden. So this is
Come full circle. It's come full
the opposite.
circle.
Yeah, yeah. But of course, I have to thank my father for the influence he gave me before starting listening to start rock and metal music. It's really that was important for me.
That's
Now we are
awesome.
gonna start this little game. Okay,
Yep, bring it on.
give me just a sec. Tell me if you can see the screen.
Yes, it's yep, I see the screen. Iron Maiden albums
Okay.
bracket fight. Okay.
Yeah. We're gonna start now. It's time for a fun game. Around we set up a knockout style tournament to determine your favorite Iron Maiden album. Okay, you'll be shown two albums at a time, and you'll have to pick up one you prefer. The winner
Okay.
will move on to the next round until only one remains.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yep, let's do it.
Okay, let's start. Okay, Virtual 11 versus Fear the Dark.
Fear of the Dark.
Okay. Now, the Number of the Beast versus Brave New World.
This is tough. This is a tough one. I
Yeah.
gotta go with Number of the Beast because it's the first time I heard Air Raid Siren sing.
Okay. Number of the Beast. Now, the Book of Souls versus Killers. Killers was the first live you saw live. So,
Killers. Yeah, definitely
Killers,
Killers.
of course. Okay. Now, Matter of Life and Death versus Peace of Mind.
Oh, this is tough. So Matter of Life and Death, I didn't like at first, but after a few years, it became one of my favorites. But nothing is going to top the beginning drums on Where Eagles there, so Peace of Mind.
Peace of Mind, okay.
Oh, too easy.
Okay.
Number of the Beast. Number of the Beast.
Number of the Beast.
Yeah.
Killers versus Peace of Mind.
Peace of Mind. To Tame a
Peace of
Land.
Mind,
Come
okay.
on, man. That was epic.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, this is too tough.
Number of the Beast versus Peace of Mind.
Holy crap. Oh, my God. This is too tough. I'm going to go Peace of Mind because that's when Maiden's true harmony sound really started to evolve.
Yeah.
Although Number of the Beast is probably one of the most flawless metal albums ever put out. Oh, Somewhere in Time, easily. Somewhere in
This
Time.
is easy. Somewhere in time,
Yeah.
okay.
Adrian's best playing by far. Oh,
Yeah.
Seventh Son.
No Prayer for Dying versus Seven Son. Seven Son. And now this is tough. Power
Nah,
Slave
Power Slave,
versus the
man. You
first.
listen to the harmonies in The Duelist. I really wish Martin Birch could have produced the first Maiden album, and he wanted to, too. Imagine how amazing that production would have sounded. But
Yeah.
Power Slave for sure.
Okay, now New Era, The Final Frontier versus Dance of Death.
Dance of Death. Passchendaele, Adrian Smith's one of his most phenomenal writing songs.
And this is for me, this is the hardest one.
Yeah, wow.
I don't know. If
Um,
I had to choose, I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, both are just like amazing. I love the
For
GK
me,
guitar sound,
for
but I'm
me,
gonna go with
this, yeah,
Somewhere in Time.
yeah,
Somewhere in
I would
Time
say
because
Somewhere in Time.
yeah,
But for me, these two albums are one album. You
yes,
had
they are.
to start listening to the Seventh Song right after Somewhere in Time. Yeah,
Yeah.
you were saying about.
Yeah, so Somewhere in Time because Wasted Years is the very first guitar solo I learned note for note from Adrian Smith. And I actually played it on an Instagram video and Adrian Smith saw it and his wife saw it and they actually told me I did a phenomenal job. So that was my big moment. My giddy fanboy moment, having knowing that I did Adrian Smith's solo, right, and he gave me a thumbs up on it. So yeah, Somewhere in Time.
Somewhere in Time, okay. Now, Power Slave versus Dance of Death.
Power Slave.
Okay. Yeah, this is tough. Somewhere in Time versus Power Slave.
I'm gonna go Power Slave just because I saw them 5 times on that tour, and they just kept sounding better and better. It's just the instrumentals on Power Slave are just second to none.
Okay. Go for Parsley. I guess this is the final. Peace of Mind versus Power Slave. The winner is,
Power Slave. Rhyme of the Ancient
and
Mariner over to Tame a Land. I'll go with Ancient Mariner.
okay,
I
the
mean, you know
winner
what's
is
great about the Maiden stuff? They always picked a great song to start the album where you were hooked immediately. Like, Peace of Mind, boom, Where Eagles There, boom, Power Slave, Aces High. How do you choose? How do you choose, right?
yeah. This is just a taste of music, but yeah, it's really really tough talking about 80s album. But I agree with you. Even with Dance of Death and A Matter of Life and Death, they are of course brand new world. They are the three albums I like more
Yeah,
of the new era. Hey,
yeah.
we have Luca Di Mauro from our Maiden team and from Maiden L. A big hug
There's my thought.
to the Maiden team and the great Gianni. Okay. Hi, Luca.
How we doing,
Okay, Ron.
Luca?
Okay, I guess we almost done. Last
This is fun.
question.
This is fun.
Yeah. The last question. Favorite guitarists and gear. Ron, if you had to pick just one guitarist as your
Oh,
all-time favorite, who will it be and why? Also, later, can you tell us about your current gear setup? What
yes.
guitars, amps, pedals do you use to get your signature sound? There you go.
Okay. There's five guitar players that shape the way I sound, but if you're gonna limit me to one, it's gonna be Gary Moore during his metal years. I think his playing on the Corridors of Power album and the Victims of the Future album are what the standard of metal guitar playing is. I mean, the guy. Let's put it this way: John Sykes, Vivian Campbell, these guys. They were Gary Moore was their idol, and you can hear it in their playing. And there's a reason why Vivian and John Sykes were so insane. Gary Moore.
Gary Moore, okay.
You asked me five, I can give you my top five that make the way why I play the way
Okay.
I do. But Gary Moore,
Go
hands
with
down.
your top five. Go
Gary
with
Moore,
your top five. Okay.
Adrian Smith. Okay, Gary Moore for pure aggression. Adrian Smith for the melodic way he writes. Michael Schenker for just pure melody and feel. Ace Frehley because Ace Frehley is Ace Frehley, and he's the reason I wanted to play guitar. And my fifth one, who is so underrated, but if you know him, Wolf Hoffman from Accept, and I got to hang out with him this summer and talk about guitars and music with
Okay,
him.
okay.
And those are the guys. I mean, those are the guys that shape the way I play guitar solos and stuff.
Yeah, I saw the picture on Instagram. Okay,
Yeah,
Ron, now let's. Do you want to show us your guitar wall?
my guitar wall. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Lot
so
of
we
Jackson.
have. I actually trimmed down my collection from 11 guitars to what we have now. There's the newest acquisition, the American Virtuoso. And then back here, we have my Phil Demolition. That's the closest thing
Wow.
to an Ibanez Destroyer I can find now. I wish I still had my Destroyer. But yeah, so you're looking at Charvel, Japanese made Jackson DKR, Adrian Smith Jackson, which I completely hot rodded, by the way. I gutted it and put all new pickups and new Floyd. Washburn nylon string is a bass back there, a Schecter bass, and this is my latest acquisition. My right now my favorite guitar, my Jackson American Virtuoso, and I actually have another Jackson locked away, a 1994 Jackson Dinky Pro Reverse, which was one of my first Jacksons I've had since '94. But that one's locked away. It needs a fret job. But gear wise,
Okay.
live, I used to play with a rack system. Me and Chris Jusino both had rack systems, which was great because for our live sound, we were able to set up the same presets for rhythms and stuff. I used a Rocktron Pro Gap. I used a Quadraverb for effects, and I used a Rocktron power amp, like a dual power amp, through a Marshall 412 1960s cabinet. I do have a
Do
19.
you want to show us your rack?
Well, this rack
Your
is just
effects?
pretty much my recording rack, right? So that's a Marshall
Yeah.
DSL 40C, which I've completely hot rodded. Changed the speaker to a Creamback Neo, Celestion Neo Creamback. I run a tube screamer through the front. I have an MXR 10 band EQ that I run through the back, through the loop. For the rack, I'm running a TC Electronics delay, stereo delay unit, a quad reverb. I have a Roland GP100
Okay.
I use sometimes for the preamp, but my main live rig, which is locked away, is a 1988 Marshall JCM 800 head that was modified by a one Mike Fortin before Mike Fortin started Fortin Amps. He's a friend of mine that met on Long Island many years ago when he was just a simple amp tech at Sam Ash Guitars. Before he started doing all his giant Fortin amps and everything, he was just doing local stuff, and he modified my JCM 800, which all my friends are still trying to buy from me, but I will never sell. That's my live thing. 1960s 412 Marshall with I think they got 70-watt greenbacks in it, and my JCM 800. And the only thing I run through any of this stuff is a tube screamer up front for a little bit of a bite, and then like I said, for rack effects for delays, I'm using a Quadriverb or TC Electronics. The last Altered Minds record was recorded with my JCM 800. This Altered Minds
Okay.
record, all guitars are being recorded with the
Yeah.
neural
My
DSP
question
stuff.
was, yeah. My question was about your plugins. Do you wanna show plugins you are using for the next upcoming album?
Yes. Let me minimize this. So I have actually a session open working on the new Altered Minds. So this is my main plugin. This is the John Petrucci Neural DSP, which I'm using for all guitars. Also have the Matias Asado plugin. I have the Mesa Boogie Mark IV plugin. I just got the Rebea plugin, which is actually really cool for synth sound. So I'm screwing around with that now. I'm going to see if I can use that somewhere. But what I had done was I got the Neural DSP stuff is absolutely phenomenal, especially since they made the X versions now. So it's updated, takes up less CPU usage. You could tweak it more. I'm actually in the process now of re-recording guitars because my drummer asked me to redo the rhythms with DIs instead of the tracking stuff. So I'm using the Petrucci stuff. I've made a bunch of presets. What's kind of cool with the plugins is I can set up a preset for each individual guitar. Since they all do have similar different tones, it's kind of cool. Like I have one setup that I use strictly for rhythm guitars. And what I did is I downloaded this stuff from this company called Chop Tones. It was like $15, and they have these plugin packs that they you could use for the Kemper stuff, the Axe Effects, the Neural Cortex, and the Neural plugins. It's a John Petrucci patch, which came with about 60 different preset sounds and IRs of different cabinets. And I've been messing with that. And let me tell you, the tones out of these, I played the stuff for people and nobody knows that I'm using plugins. Everybody thinks it's an amp. Because nowadays you're going digital recording everything in your DAW, you are not going to be able to tell what's an amp and what's a plugin. I'll be honest with you.
Wow.
Um, Especially and what's kind of cool is I even use it for acoustics. I don't even mic the acoustics anymore. I can go plug in with them, and the way you can alter the sounds with these plugins, it's just absolutely phenomenal. But that's what I'm going with, man. It's the neural stuff, and my favorite, like I said, hands down, because I think it's the most versatile, is the John Petrucci plugin. Because
Okay.
you can really tweak the hell out of it. You know.
Okay, Ron. And what I gonna say, guys? Now, I wanna say to the guys who are listening to us, and we will be listening to us this video, and the people who will watch this video later. Guys, go and listening to Ultra Mind music. Okay, support the guys. Give they a like on their page, follow them because they are really, really great musicians. Ron is a great guitarist, a friend, of course. And Ron, This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you for sharing your journey and insights
Thank
with us.
you for taking the time. I wish I could have got the other guys involved, but like I said, working remotely with these guys, everybody's sort of in their own different places. So to get us all in one room at the same time is usually when we start mixing the record. That's when all of us are in the room at the same time. But
Okay,
thanks, man. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for being a friend. I look forward to the next collab you and me are going to do together because it's always fun, and I look forward to seeing you again this summer in Europe.
can't
Oh, and I
wait.
love the new stuff you put out, man. You guys sound so good. I love it. Go check out his stuff,
Thank
man.
you.
Go listen to Gianni's stuff. It's not just
Okay,
Maiden
thank you very
covers.
much.
It's some really great stuff. So yeah, thanks for taking the time. I hope you got to hear me babble for an hour and a half. And yeah, it was fun, man. Now I'm gonna
Thank you
go
very
back to
much.
sleep because it's my day off, and like I told you, I don't get up this early for many people.
Yeah,
So you're a good
yeah.
friend. That's
Let's
why I got up this early.
thank you very much. Let's say that yeah, in Italy it's afternoon, but it's New York morning. So
Yeah, it's like
thank you
what
very
ten
much,
thirty in the
Ron.
morning now here in New York. It's my day off, and I don't get up this early. But he's a good friend, and this was a lot of fun. So everybody, thank you for listening in. Listening to me ramble. Go follow Gianni on Instagram, on social media. Go follow my band, and hopefully you guys like it. And I will definitely always Gianni. You're such a good friend. You will always get some updates on the new stuff before we release it, so I can get your critique on it because I do value your opinion as a friend and as another amazing guitar player.
I'm looking forward your next upcoming album. Thank you, Ron. And to all our listeners, make sure to check out Archer and Mind's next upcoming album and stay tuned for their upcoming projects. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the Maiden Team podcast, follow us on social media, and join the Maiden Team Facebook group to be part of future Iron Maiden collaboration. Thanks again, Ron, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. See you in the next episode, and cheers. Stay with me. We will catch up later. Okay.
Ciao,
Bye, guys.
Paisan.
Ciao, ciao. And bye, teammates. Rock on. Up the irons.